Welcome into the Florida State postgame show. The game against Florida is not quite over, but because the Gus Malzahn news is already broken, I want to talk about that. That is coming up first here on the postgame show right now.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into the Florida State postgame show. I am your host, Brian Smith, here at Locked On Seminoles. Thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. Obviously, Florida State is going to lose this game, barring some kind of miracle. They have literally fumbled the game away. But before I go into all of that and we get into the chat, I'm very curious to see what everybody says, because this game, honestly, Florida State played pretty good defense tonight. I do want to go into my knowledge of Gus Malzahn. I've covered him. I've covered UCF. I know him, great guy. And I want to give everybody some insights into what Florida State will be getting with their future offensive coordinator, because Lord only knows what we're seeing again tonight is not in any way, shape, or form acceptable. It is garbage. Florida State needs to find some kind of cohesiveness, consistency, and for the love of mankind, not fumble the football any chance they can. Let's mix that in too. So, number one with Gus, he is a run-first football coach, period. And he also needs a very mobile quarterback. Let me define what I mean by very. Luke Kromenhoek is mobile. He is not a Gus Malzahn quarterback, in my opinion. Gus Malzahn needs a quarterback that breaks ankles. He needs a New York City point guard that's a 5-star. I think you can run the offense with Luke, but it's not a perfect fit. It's okay. It's not ideal. I'm curious to see if Gus will adapt. Sometimes he has, sometimes he has not. To give you an example, quarterbacks that he's had the last few years, some of them have been able to run pretty well, but at the same time, he's still when you play major college football, there's no substitute for it. You've got to make post-snap reads, which I think Luke will eventually get to. It's a little early now as I'm sitting here watching the game, him throwing. I think there's some signs that he's headed in that direction, but the way Gus calls a game is so different than what Mike Norvell calls it. It brings up the first question. Who's really going to be designing the offense? And then on game day, especially like third down calls, who's making those decisions before they even get to the football games? Because Gus runs a ton of misdirection, reverses, and screens. That's just what his offense is. It's fine, again, if you've got a very mobile quarterback. But his offense will not completely work with Luke behind center. There's going to have to be a major adjustment. I don't know what they'll do with that, because when I was covering UCF, they had guys that could just run all over the place. So I don't know how that's going to transpire, but I do know this. Gus understands the portal. He likes to get after it. He's still hungry. He's a guy that doesn't mind the recruiting scene. He'll get kids out of Alabama and Georgia, etc. He'll be just fine doing that. So Florida State will get an upgrade there. And he'll also bring stability in the terms of what he expects in effort. Kids that want to goof around a little bit and not take it serious at practice or in the meeting room or anything else, goodbye. He'll send them home. Florida State needs stability in their program. That's one thing I can guarantee you, that Luke Kromenhoek all the way to the punter will be held accountable each and every day in the meeting room, in the weight room, and everything else with Gus Malzahn on staff. That I am 1,000,000% confident in. He's a great guy. It's easy to get along with Gus. He's really nice to the media. He's easy to talk to about anything on the field, off the field. Wife's a great gal, whole 9 yards, good family. He will fit in Tallahassee from a culture standpoint. Really religious guy. Obviously, North Florida is very much into that. I think this is a good fit in that perspective. Again, the one thing that I'm really curious about is something we won't know till next season. I don't care what happens in spring. I don't want to give a darn about what we hear over the summer. I need to see it on game day next year. I know that's a long time from now, but there's no shortcut here. How does third down work out? How do they adapt the offense to have a semi-mobile quarterback like Kromenhoek? He's a straight line runner. Malzahn strongly prefers a guy that breaks ankles. He wants a extremely gifted athlete. So that'll be the interesting part. The only other thing that I will say about him is because of his coaching connections. I don't know if they'll do this, but he knows about everybody. He's been in the coaching fraternity for a long time down south. But in state of Arkansas, state of Alabama, state of Florida. So he knows pretty much everybody, the SEC and the ACC. Who does he want as somebody else on his staff? Does he want to bring somebody with him? Does that influence Florida State staff? Does somebody else get canned or move on because there's not a fit? I'm guessing at least one or two more just on the offensive side will go because Malzahn's the coordinator. He knows so many people, he may bring other coaches with him. I have no idea who they will be. Again, his tree is massive. So all the people that have touched him and vice versa in the coaching ranks, it could be anywhere. I do know this, Florida State will be gaining somebody that believes in recruiting Florida too, before I forget. Like that's been a focus of his, but it's a little easier to do at Florida State than it is at UCF. I'm going to dive into the chat here in a little bit, but right now as I look over, there's just over 4 minutes left in the football game. Florida's up 24-3. I know people will start to funnel into the chat, but please comment, get out your thoughts and everything. I'm actually going to pull up some stats here and just kind of go over some things in just a second and get a better perspective for what's happening with Florida State in this game. But I mean, the one stat that I don't need to look up, you can't have 3 fumbles and a muffed on a punt. They just gave Florida the game. Florida didn't play very well tonight. DJ missed an easy touchdown. He threw the interception in the end zone, etc. He had a few nice plays, especially that one in the first half, got away from Jackson. But Florida's not a very good football team. And Florida State just completely handed it to them. I give credit to the defense tonight. That was one of my big questions. Would they come out and play hard? They did. But some of this stuff is ridiculous. They're about to get a late touchdown here. But it's ridiculous how Florida State just shoots itself in the foot. Wood dropped the ball, getting ready to hand it off. He pitched it behind Cam on the fumble. He gets hit. He didn't recognize the pressure. I've said it a million times. His pocket presence has got to speed up exponentially. It has not. So that all 3 of those in some way, shape, or form on Cromanhawk. And he's the future of the program, but he is not anywhere in the stratosphere of being ready. That's reality. The one on Will Wayne, that's just on him. But all of those cost you points or gave them points or both. The game was just lost in the turnover battle. It's not a secret. So let's start with that. As far as what Florida State is trying to do in terms of their long-term ability, it's pretty interesting. They finally scored a touchdown. I think I like some of the thoughts with what they're doing with the run game. But again, with Malzahn coming up, to be really honest with you, the run game will change exponentially. They will be much more downhill, zone heavy with a quarterback that's going to run a little bit more, or I will be shocked because that would not go with what he has done. I would be surprised if Norvell didn't agree to that because Gus doesn't change much. Here are some of the stats for the game right now. I mean, Florida State's they finally end up with a touchdown here. I think they didn't give it to him. I thought he scored. They're at 220 yards. I mean, that's just pathetic. They got four turnovers, 1's muff punt, 3 are fumbles. Luke is 15-28 right now, 140 yards, and there's 3 minutes to go in the game. Tofili, 44 yards rushing, had that. Well, he had a fumble actually. If I remember right, didn't he? I want to say he had one too. But anyway, 44 yards rushing. Sam Singleton, 16 yards. Cromanhawk, 14. Mekhi Danzy, 6. Cam Davis does not look himself, by the way. That's something I want to get into here in a minute. 5 carries for 3 yards. That's very concerning. And Rodell doesn't look himself either. 6 carries for -1. It is what it is, but nonetheless, it's one of those things where, the touchdown Florida State. You are who you are. Right? They've got 82 yards rushing against Florida, but Florida popped up the big one, obviously, a little bit ago, 65-yard run. Touchdown for Montreal Johnson. He's a really good player. 10 carries for 99 yards. But outside of that, they kind of handled him pretty well. He's just under 4 yards per carry. The big question mark was, could Florida State pass block tonight, though? The stats for the defense for Florida is comical. Tackles for loss. Anybody want to guess what Florida's at for the game? That includes any play behind the line of scrimmage. What do you want to guess? 14. That is Little League stuff. This is the worst major college offensive line I can remember in my lifetime, meaning a program that, traditionally wants to compete for a national title. Dead last. Absolutely a joke. I don't know how you get to this point, but Mike finally fired the guy that he hired that caused all this mess. So we have that to look forward to kind of fix. I'll talk about that a little bit here in a minute, but I just want you to think about it. 14 tackles for loss. It's like 7 sacks against a mobile quarterback. Florida State's offensive line woes are a couple years away from getting fixed, I would imagine, because the portal won't give them a ton. And there's not a lot on the roster. Could see a lot of this next year too. But I guarantee you that you're going to see some kids that, quite frankly, are going to be moving in and out. I have a feeling you're going to see massive roster turnover. And that's something I want to talk about next here before I get into the chat. The transfer portal is going to be a little bit different than what I originally thought with Florida State. That is next here on Locked On Seminoles. Have you downloaded the Game Time app yet? Game Time allows you to get tickets to Florida State events, NBA games, MLB, NFL. You can go to a concert. You can go to a play. You can even go to a movie theater. The cool part about it for me is the ability to get on your app right there on your phone and be able to see the ticket and the seat in the venue. Where am I at? How far am I from the stage? How far am I from the pitcher's mound? How far am I from midcourt? How far am I from the 50-yard line? All of those things you can see with the Game Time app right there in your hands. Also, they have Game Time Picks. If you don't want to look around for something, you're just looking for a good deal, Game Time Picks is what you need to check out inside the Game Time app. It filters out all the fluff, and it shows you great deals on all kinds of things wherever you're at. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. The transfer portal is something that I knew Florida State was going to have to hit hard this year, but I really didn't know how it was going to work until at least one, and preferably, honestly, both coordinators were hired. The news about Malzahn coming, although shocking to me, is great news for 2 reasons. Number one, again, his contacts are vast. He's a guy that really gets after it, really hard worker, somebody that knows just about everybody in the South, and he's one of the easiest guys you're ever going to meet to get along with. There'll be some players that come play for Gus. That I guarantee. Again, it won't just be, we're going to get a bunch of UCF guys. No, just in general. Kids that he recruited in high school that he didn't get, but at least know him. If they're iffy about where they're at, there's a chance Florida State will get them. They will get players because Gus is at Florida State. What is it that I always say in recruiting? Players pick coaches, not schools. Say that again. Players pick coaches, not schools. Malzahn will help with that. Now, I don't know how many offensive linemen he can help you with because there's just never that many good linemen in the portal. Florida State's in deep trouble there. I'm 100% confident of that. That being the case, you're also looking at a scenario where Florida State, realistically, honestly, they knew they weren't going to be in a great spot anyway there. They're probably going to be able to pick up a couple decent linemen, would be my guess, but they need like 4 top-end guys. I mean, they're in a bad spot. But let's talk about skill spots. Gus always wants to recruit guys that can fly. Well, that fits Florida State's MO anyway. So the skill talent, I think, will do pretty good. And he's always had at least one guy that is a downhill power back. Always. If Rodell gets to come back, and I've heard he might be able to, I don't know what the NCAA eligibility is, but if he could, he would fit. Cam Davis is 100% a fit. And it's speed, again, Sam Singleton. So just looking at the running back room, great dynamic for what Gus has been able to do at his time, Arkansas State, Auburn, and, of course, at UCF. So I really like that. At receiver is where it gets interesting. I don't care what coordinator you have. I don't care what head coaching experience a guy has. Got to catch the ball. Florida State has run routes poorly this year too often, dropped way too many balls. And while the tight ends have certainly come on, that's a great benefit because he will use tight ends. He's done that a lot. in his tenure, a lot of H-back stuff when he had Cam Newton at Auburn, etc. Done that at UCF. I expect him to do the same at Florida State. They're in good shape there. But the receiving group as a whole got to be a lot more consistent. Who he hires as his receiver coach will be massive. Very, very important. I don't know which person or persons that he's going to consider, but knowing Gus, the way I do, he's probably already made calls. He's that guy. It's just something that he does. He doesn't really know taking time off. Like, that's just not his MO at all, but we'll see. One last thing before I jump into the chat. I'm curious to see what coaches come in to the offense. But before anybody asks, and I'm sure it's in the chat, I have not heard anything on the defensive coordinator. Let me say that again. I have not heard anything. I have not looked into it. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of stuff, but with all the games this weekend and all the different things I'm covering, just haven't had a chance to really dive in. And even if I did, like the Gus Malzahn stuff, that's the kind of thing that happens backdoor anyway. Maybe Gus has an influence on that too. So we shall see. So with that, I'm going to jump into the chat. Thank you for everybody once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate it. Here we go. Let's see. Tyler. Atkins being on the UF sideline was hilarious, and at least Michigan is out of, or Miami's out of the ACC championship. By the way, Miami choking again is just hilarious. How can you have Cam Ward not even make the ACC title game? Now, I know Florida State is terrible this year, but like there's zero excuse. That's on Cristobal. That is terrible. So whatever it is. Let's see. Sam Gibson says bad hire. I don't know. It depends on who they hire with him. And Gus will bring a lot of stability with a lot of other things in the staff. We'll see. He might have a wonderful stream. I don't know what that means. Kenneth, I'm not sure what you mean. Wonderful stream and offensive. I'm not sure there, buddy. Neb524 heard rumblings about Tony White, defensive coordinator to Florida State. Garrett. Gus recruiting rankings was at Auburn. 13th, 6th, 6th, 5th, 13th, 9th, 12th, 7th. Yeah. Let's see. Sam Gibson. Does Florida State players play for FSU or FU Turnover City? Yeah, I tell you what, you got to hold on to the ball, right? I mean, at some point, you just got to hold on to the football. This is comical. Like what's going on with the ability to catch the football was a problem earlier this year. Now they start doing that. But the simple handoffs, catching the snap, it's like, yikes. Catching the punt, this is really, really bad. I don't know what to say to it. Like, Florida State has found a way to lose about any way you can possibly imagine this year. That I do know. And I doubt anybody here is going to disagree. Kenneth Clark. Now we need a defensive coordinator for the Noles. Yeah, that's true. I don't know who that might be. There's going to be tons of names floating. I have not looked into it. Jackson. Post-game show with 4 minutes left. You love to see it. Go Gators. I do a post-game show no matter what, right when I say I'm going to. If the game ends later than it's supposed to, I still started on time. That's why. Garrett. Will Gus hand the offensive line coach, and do you see any UCF players coming with him? Hand's a pretty good friend of his, and he's a great guy. Coach Hand's a really nice guy. It's possible. He was with him at Auburn at one point. Coach Hand's been at Texas. He's been in a lot of different places. He knows Gus's system, so it would be plug and play. I don't know. Your second part of that question is what everybody's going to want to know. There'll be somebody from UCF transfer, but I doubt it's a bunch. We'll see. L Proof. Gus greater than Norvell. Could be. Langston. Mike sucks. Wagway is special. Cam Davis sucks. Slow, and he's a choker. Blah, blah. This guy's way too negative for me. Goodbye. Terry. Still no Trevor Jackson to mix things up. So we're still looking at Luke just stand there holding the ball. You'll eventually see Luke is just not the guy for the team. A little early to throw away a quarterback who's a true freshman there, partner. Terry, I appreciate your comments, but true freshman, you do not pass judgment. Langston. Let's see. You are too negative. Which UCF commits do you see Gus bringing? I'm not making any predictions about roster stuff. I have no idea what's going on with UCF's commitments. their roster. I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. I appreciate your interest in it. I get it, but that is very touchy, and I have zero idea. Let's see. Roberts. Everyone knows Gus's offense. Not everyone, brother. There's some people who wouldn't even know where he's at right now as a head coach. Jay Corner. Can the O-line problems also be corrected to his strength conditioning coaches? The O-line and team just does not seem physically imposing. This team do a lot of substitutions for no reason. I mean, I don't know if they'll change that or not. I haven't heard anything. Your guess is as good as mine. EJ Colson. I have, again, I'm going to say this probably 30 times because everyone wants to hear about transfer. Zero clue on any transfers just because Gus is coming to Florida State. I do not know. I know the man, but I'm not, even if I called him right now, and I don't even have his number, but if I called him, that's not something he's going to tell me. We'll just have to wait and see how that turns out. Robert Smith. Gus has to have a dual threat quarterback. Gus doesn't have one right yet. Well, it depends on your definition because Kromenhoek's a dual threat, but he's not a true Gus dual threat. As I said in the opening of this show, Gus usually wants somebody that is absolutely an ankle breaker. That is not what Luke is. He's got some speed, and he does a great job with ball fakes and keeping the defensive end occupied with the running back, but that's not the same as making a guy miss in space. But Sean, I still think Mike should have gave Brock more playing time. Wouldn't have hurt necessarily. Musa, how do you assess a running back being garbage behind this line? Yeah, it's pretty hard to say. I'm not sure. He's referring to another poster that I won't even mention, but I don't know. This offensive line's so bad, I think some of the running backs are a little hesitant, to be honest with you. Jerry Jones, 1993. Hard to look at the New York Giants, bad O-line, good running back. It's a pretty good point. I don't think the running back situation is bad at Florida State. I just think that there's nowhere to run a lot of the time. So it is what it is. Let's see. Langston does bring up an interesting thing here. We won't win 6 games with Luke next year, but that's okay because Norvell will get fired. It's possible. What if the new coordinator is there to replace Mike if he does bad next year? I highly doubt that Norvell is being looked at as a guy going out the door with Malzahn, the next guy, but he could be the holdover for a year or something. I mean, Gus is an older guy. I don't think he would be a long-term answer in Tallahassee, but that would be interesting. Any chance Stoops is free this offseason? Wishful thinking. Stoops just said today that he plans on sticking with Kentucky. Singleton is the best running back on the team. He should be the starting next year. Jacob, Seminoles fan 2. That pitch close on the end zone was bad. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you there, brother. Patrick Ryan, winning is hard. Last year's team won every game. Watching all these teams struggle this year and lose is comical. The snub set us back 3 years. It still really, really stings. Go Noles. Garrett, is it worrisome if we can't get the right quarterback to run the system? Gus willing to adjust his scheme based on his players. I need to see that. Now, he's run different things, but again, ideally for him, doesn't mean he doesn't adjust some. I mean, that's ridiculous to say, but he wants somebody that can look somebody in the face, shake them, and they don't even physically make contact with it. That's not what Kromenhoek is. Now, he can still throw it all over the lot, too. He's shown the ability to do that when he was at Auburn, and he's had games where he's done that at UCF. But again, he does most of his best work when his quarterback is an elusive player that has similar to running back skills. Patrick Ryan, love to see Miami is still irrelevant. At least we aren't Canes fans, 21 years and nothing to show. That is fact. Miami is the choke artist of college football. It is amazing to me they couldn't even make the title game. Langston, easy because he falls down if you breathe on him. He has no shake and he's slow. That's how. Okay, whatever there, bud. Proof. When you say players choose coaches, do you specifically mean position coaches and coordinators? Does Norvell become a liability here? What I mean by this, and this is just, it's not a Florida State thing. In recruiting, players pick coaches. Sometimes it's head coach, sometimes it's assistant, sometimes it's position, but it's not the name on the polo that they're picking. It's the person representing that polo. That's just the way it is. It's been that way for years. That's not changing. Their objective is to go play for a coach that gets them to the NFL. That's it. So, he's an okay recruiter, but in terms of the upper echelon of college football, Norvell is not. And that's one of the reasons they suck this year. Out of the top 25 programs historically in college football, he would be at the very bottom of that in terms of a head coach as a recruiter. That's just reality. Sam Gibson. We need a brand new offensive line because this O-line does not meet Gus's standards, much less anyone else's standards. Post of the night from Sam Gibson. This line is horrendous. As I've said many times, it is an embarrassment. There's no reason for it to be this bad, and I have no idea why it is this bad. But I'm just the guy here stating the obvious. With that, I want to take a quick break. We'll get back into the chat here in just a second on Locked On Seminoles. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets. FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to play live bets on the NFL. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play, and so much more in the middle of the game, right from the page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. And again, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, here. Jacob, Seminoles fan 2. Do you think we will get answers on what the hell is going on in the offseason? I'm not sure what you mean by that, but it's just a starting point. Hiring coaches, getting new players in the portal. Remember now, just give a little shout out here on the portal. It opens on the 9th of December, and it closes, I believe it is the 7th of January. However, that's just to get your name in the portal. You might sign a kid in March to put his name in on December 17th. It is no holds bar on when news can break. Random as all get out, which drives me bananas, but I don't make the rules on that. Cubs 0209, thank God this horror show is over. On to 2025. Amen to that. Jacob, Seminoles fan, we are next to Kent State of worst teams. It's kind of hard to argue that. That last touchdown just showed that this team has a low football IQ. They just don't play smart football, nor do they do their job. There's nothing wrong with saying that, to be honest. This team has shot itself in the foot far too many times, to put it mildly. It's 31-11. The game is almost over. It just mercifully needs to end. I'd like Muschamp at defense coordinator with a mobile quarterback for Christmas. That's from Neb524. I'm sure they just fumbled again. Are you kidding me? Wow. That's Cromenhawk again. He's got fumbleitis tonight. Zion Equity Group. There's not even the Division I quality players to be in an offensive lineman. Well, that's not true. There's Division I quality players. Luke is not a true dual threat, and what Gus wants, you are correct. That's from Ned524. 100%. I'm curious. Either he's going to adapt or that offense is going to suck, because he's not going to be shaking and baking on the corner. Jacob, Seminoles fan, is this the worst SF team I've ever seen? That's not even in question. This is the worst team since before Bobby was in Tallahassee. Bobby joined the program and took it over for the 76 season. What does that tell you? Yeah, that's pretty bad. That's 48 years ago. You see, can we just all chomp in the chat? That's hilarious. Besides Odell, who puts guys in the NFL? Sartan could if he'd start, but I doubt he does. If he stays, I doubt if he does. Papa Cheese did develop verse, and you can say he did. So he had to keep Papa Cheese, and Luke is not good. Luke is a freshman, man. Quarterback is a long-term process. Your first year of college, usually you're terrible. Second year, you're usually average. There is not many guys that cut the curve as a sophomore even. It's just the way it is. Once Florida State goes to the portal, Florida State will probably suck again next year. But you're not going to get the quarterbacks ready by sitting them on the bench. And Florida State doesn't have the reason to go out and spend for the top guy because they're not going to be great next year. So I expect them to keep Luke and just move forward. We'll see if I'm right or not. Jacob Seminoles fan, at least the basketball team is 7-1. By the way, shout out to the basketball team for being 7-1. I thought they would be, if not the worst team in the ACC, towards the bottom. Now, maybe things fall flat a little bit later, but I'm going to cover some hoops here pretty soon, and good for them. I'm glad to see that the program's at least doing better. It's a lot better to be 7-1 than not. Let's just look at it that way. I haven't played an incredibly difficult schedule, but wins are wins. Hate this team, and the coaches are, I won't even say what he said. Never mind. Rob, 8 fumbles and 9 sacks. We're getting better, guys. Yeah, this is one of the most pathetic performances in a Florida State game I've ever seen in terms of just basic blocking, tackling, and ball security. The 65-yard run for Florida as a cherry on top. I mean, Florida didn't even play well tonight. They didn't. But Florida State handed them so many opportunities, they still ran away with it. That's really bad. Sam Gibson, I agree with Muschamp for defense coordinator, and that means Florida State would have 2 former head coaches from 2 major colleges. That sounds good to recruits. Note to everybody. Now, Muschamp gets brought up constantly on this channel. He is personal friends with the head coach in Athens, Georgia. And he's on staff there. And they're winning. Why would he go anywhere else? He doesn't need money. He's got more money he could ever spend. I know everybody wants Muschamp. The chances of getting him, I'm going to put it less than 1%. It's going to be an up-and-comer more than likely. The Gus thing is a rare deal. And I think it's a pretty good hire, to be honest. But the defensive coordinator, don't expect top end. I'll be shocked. Why would anybody want to come here under this circumstance? They got 2 wins. They're god-awful. Prove me wrong. 7 fumbles, 5 lost, 9 sacks. The O-line is the worst in the history of the game from John Simcox. It's pretty bad. Fumbles are a bad sign as far as coaching goes. Luke had like 3 or 4 of them himself. Like Luke had a bad game. Just not keeping the ball in his hands. It's just ridiculous. It is what it is. It is what it is. There's some stupidity on the field right now. Somebody tried to plant a Florida flag, and Norvell kind of threw it to the side. That's hilarious. But whatever. All these, there should be major fines to schools. If you try to plant your flag on somebody's field, I don't care if you beat them 50-0, don't do that. It just leads to violence and stupidity. So it is what it is. Let's see here. Gus could be a good to hold them accountable. I agree. That's from Neb. I'm telling you, I said this in the opening of the show while the game was still going on. He's about as easygoing a guy as you'll get, but he will expect you to be on time, dress a certain way, talk a certain way, be respectful. He's a God-fearing man, takes no BS, all that stuff. He's a good dude. I expect him to be a good influence on the Florida State University football program as a whole. The idiot brigade, if they try to challenge him, they'd be gone. Yeah, I can tell you that right now. I know Gus, he's gone. Idiots will be gone. He's at a point in his career, especially where he doesn't have to do it. He ain't stick around for that. So Norvell knows that too, or this deal wouldn't be coming to fruition. But it is what it is. So, by the way, there are a bunch of Florida players acting like complete idiots on the sidelines right now. I have no idea. You'll see some dumb videos on social media pretty soon. Let's see. John Dooley. I'm a Gator. I used to love this game back when it meant something. Let's keep the talent in Florida. Right now, the talent is leaving, John. I can tell you that. Rob S. Do you think the Florida State goes after Castellano to BCE with Gus coming? That's interesting. I know Castellano pretty well, but he left there because he wasn't going to play. Unless they're going to tell him he's starting, he's not going to come. He will not sit for once. He doesn't want a competition. He wants a job. That's just not how it's going to work. I think his career is in a little bit of jeopardy. Ed Gain, or Gene, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. They planted a flag. Yeah, that doesn't go well. And Norvell made sure to tell Billy about it. It's just so dumb. Billy did not tell him to do that. That's people acting like idiots. That's what that is. Jacob, once Toffoli fumble was the beginning of the problem in this game. Yes, indeed. Tony White, Neb, people saying could be a thing, 335 boosters. There are at least, but who knows? I have no idea what you mean, Neb. Cosmo, why do you think we had a periodic good runs? Just Florida taking a playoff, or O-line is actually capable? Both. Florida doesn't do a good job with run gap hits. They mess up all the time. They're a very average defense with a lot of talent. Their coach thinks he's nifty. He's a young guy, and he can call some things, but sometimes they think too much, and two guys will end up in one gap, and even, a blind squirrel finds a nut. Well, Florida State's O-line, it doesn't lack power and size. It just lacks continuity. They get on a hat, they can move some people out of the way, and Florida State's got good running backs. That's not a question. So take it for what it's worth. What else we got here? Let's see. Rob, I feel like Norvell is hiring his interim replacement. That could end up happening. It's interesting that Rob brings this up. Look, again, I'll say this for the record. I know Gus, he's a great guy. He will fit in well. The culture in North Florida fits him to a T. It's not much different than where I live in Auburn, Alabama. He's a religious guy. Yes, sir. No, sir. Respect women. Respect your teammates. Respect your institution. Show up on time. Look respectable. All those things. He will fit in. That I know. What I also know is the guys that don't want to handle that will not be at Florida State University playing for him. Either that or he'll leave. Like Norvell doesn't let him get rid of guys or whatever. That won't last long. Florida State needs some of that. They got people on the team. There's no doubt about it that they're more interested in what they're getting their NIL. You can tell by the way some guys play hard sometimes and sometimes don't. Use your own imagination with that. Neb, UF has little to no class, so it's not a shocker. Some of their players right now, they're really disappointing. I like DJ Lagway. I've met him. He's a great kid. I know some of their players, but some of the kids tonight acted like idiots at the end. It's pathetic. I love Odell. This is from Sam Gibson. I love Odell, but his time has come. Let's give him an offense and get a younger coach. Like I said, I love Coach Odell. I'd have no problem with that. I think it would be best if Odell moved on so you can get that, but he just likes coaching. I don't know what the circumstance is with that. He's a legendary player. He's a legendary coach. He was one of the best recruiters in the country for years for Bobby. He's been around Florida State for 40 years in some capacity. Yeah, I don't know what you do. Donald Gelsey, who do you think would be a good choice for the defense coordinator? I know a bunch of guys, but I don't know what they're willing to spend. I might as well just, since you brought this up, I'll just dive into it, Donald. And thank you for the question. It is a valid one. I said this about a few other schools with some buddies, and I've kind of hinted about this a few times here on this show. Because the program is in the dumpster right now, make no mistake on this. Let's just use basic math. Around 1.5 to 2 million is going to get you the price tag for a top defense coordinator. Because Florida State is absolutely terrible, Norvell is on the hottest of hot seats. A, it's going to be hard to get anybody to even do an interview that's an elite coach. And B, why would they leave where they're at? And C, if I am going to come, you're going to not only pay me, you're going to overpay me. Florida State is not known for that. I don't see that working out, especially because Gus is going to come and this might be his retirement job, but I don't see this working out in a scenario where Florida State gets a top guy on defense coordinator. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't think that's the case. Let's see. Langston, they actually planted the flag. We don't do that crap. Their scoreboard speaks for itself, and then they try to beat a 2-9 team. Yeah, it's really dumb. It's a bad look for Florida, but it is what it is. Norvell threw the flag. I saw that. I'm watching some screen of it. That's pretty funny. Norvell got a hold of it and threw it. That's hilarious. Good for him. Troy Taylor. The pathetic thing is, if Norvell did not have pressure to fire coaches, Atkins and Fowler would be back next year. 100%. He doesn't. You have to be ready to fire friends. This job, this profession is not for the friendly. It is for people that do not care. As awful as that sounds. But coaches in general, that's a small niche. I was listening to a podcast that Urban Meyer was on today. Like every guy they brought up, I know him. I know it. Coaching fraternity is small. Everybody knows everybody. You have to be willing to fire people that you sit down and break bread with. That is awkward. Do it anyway. Or else you'll be the one getting fired. Norvell may soon find that out. Let's see. Some booster people who know at Nebraska indicates FSU heavily pursue him. White runs a 3-3-5 defense. I don't know. It's White at Nebraska. I don't even know who White is, but they play a pretty physical brand of ball. 3-3-5 is wild because you just think of like 3-3-5 and it's a passive. You can run that a million ways from play to play. You can run it from a one-gap system or a two-gap and mix it up. It depends on how good and how big your nose guard is. That's a huge part of it. But there are options there. A lot of teams do it, especially if they're short on numbers up front, but they do have you got to have a big guy to run a two-gap. You could only run the one gap if you got a 285-pound nose guard, but that's an interesting thing. Mark Connor. From a Gator, the flag was classless and Billy will rip some, you know what, over it. Apologies. Respect right there, Mr. Mark. I truly do respect that. Jay Cruz, 8741. FSU sucked this year. Yes, they did. That is not a miraculous statement. Kim, oh my God, I think the ward above this horrific season is over. Also one of the better posts of the night. Well done, Kim. Neb524, former DC and ACC at Syracuse. I don't know much about White. I'll have to look him up, though. Rhinos. Hopefully, Gus brings some players with it. I'd imagine some will come that know him, whether it's from UCF or not. That's to be determined. Let's see. Barbara Phil, I think terrible and bad sportsmanship of the Florida Gators to take their flag and spike it on our field. It's pretty dumb, to be really blunt. It really is. Kim. What we got here? The O-line was the worst I've seen. 8 sacks, 14 tackles for loss. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. Derek. Yes, now I can finally enjoy some quality football games. Yeah, no kidding, brother. It was a good weekend of football. A lot of good games today. Let's see. That's out of the Penn State game. That was horrible. But this was the maddest I've seen Norvell all season. Yeah, like don't disrespect him. You know, I don't blame him for being upset. Stop complaining about 40 playing the flag, win the game, sports icons. Well, I mean, it's both. It's not one or the other. Sensei Tank 94, Solomon Thomas gone. If that's the case, so be it. It is what it is. Georgie, I hope next year that we dance until midnight in the swamp when we play these classic people in Gainesville. I don't like Florida State's chances against hardly anybody next year, let alone Florida. Let's see. John Simcox. I'm not even excited for next season. We have so many problems that we can't be fixed in one offseason. Horribly managed program by Norvell. Bingo. There's no doubt about it. This next year is just the glue gap because you're not going to hit with NIL the way you should because not many people are going to want to donate. I'm talking about the big money people. You got all the off-the-field stuff with the stadium, the ACC case. They got money spread too thin. And how many people really believe honestly, that Norvell is going to be the coach beyond 25. So I agree. Barbara Phil, Florida Gators are disgraceful. No argument. Since a quarterback looked good, like his backstory, it had no help outside of a fifth-year senior in the wide receiver corps. Kim, is Luke good enough going forward? I don't know. I need to see him coached up, and I need to see him not scared to death when he gets to snap to get obliterated. How can you tell what he's capable of? He got sacked 8 times. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Sports Icons TV. If you win the game, you wouldn't have to worry about bad sportsmanship. That's false because Florida could still act like idiots. Don't kid yourself. It's possible. Seminoles. It's funny, you're just like all the other media in America. You were a hater when we were good. What in the world are you talking about? Oh, we got here. Kim, is the O-line the cause of this awful season? No, it's one of many problems, but it's probably the biggest one. I mean, Florida State's O-line's a joke. Saying anything else is laughable. Sports Icons TV. Dillingham, next FSU coach, is zero chance. He is an ASU grad. He is at his absolute happy place. He will be at ASU a long time. Sam Gibson, do you think that the constant changing on the O-line has far the starting five? Doesn't that end with the O-line not gelling? 100%. That hurt, but they weren't good anyway. Look at it this way. They had a center that was a 6th-year senior and a left tackle, a 6th-year senior that didn't play well. I mean, really? I mean, these guys weren't just plugged in. They had multiple years that they played football, and they got worse. So there's a lot of problems. Let's see. Seminoles. It's funny. Get this guy out of here. We're getting a lot of people just all know-it-alls now. FSU takes sod from other fields. Well, I don't care about that crap. Getting kind of here to the end. Sam Gibson. I love the tried and true 4-3 defense. I do too, but it doesn't work when everybody's running spread and you got 4 people out there. Linebackers don't cover receiver, brother. Polo showed more fight taking the flag down than the game. That's a pretty good post. Michael, hopefully the entire team enters the portal tomorrow. I don't know about the entire team. That might be a little harsh. That's kind of funny, though. Oh, gosh, got idiots. How about Miami? They're back. That's well said. Miami choked again. They were up 21-0 and lost. Miami can't get out of its own way. It's hilarious. Kim, how do you fix this when no one wants to play for this team? I didn't say you could. I don't think Norvell will. I think Norvell will coach next season and get fired. That's what I think. I think he is a lousy program builder. He's a one-trick pony on what he does best. If he doesn't have a quarterback that exactly fits that, it's not likely the team will be good. Now, he did do it in 2019 at Memphis when they had a pro-style quarterback through 4,000 yards, but that's a different league. At the Power 4, you got to be able to adjust year to year to be really successful. I don't think Mike can do that. Contribute to the Mike Norvell buyout fund. Every dollar counts. That's from Sports Icons TV. That is true. Let's see. Christopher P. says, glad to turn the page from this horror show new offense coordinator. I will second that notion. There's no reason to think that Florida State can't be better on offense next year. I mean, it can't be really any worse. They're averaging like 14, 15 points a game. So it is what it is. Barbara Phil, the best game was the game when we went into 8 overtimes, Georgia Tech this weekend. That, if anybody watching it, that was pretty wild. I was rooting for Tech just because it'd be nice to see somebody beat Georgia there, but this is not a nearly as good Georgia team as it's been in a while. Let's see. Sir Comrade. Finally, this season is over with. Amen. Amen. He does make another good point, though. Half the sacks were Luke's fault. He holds the ball way too long. His pocket presence is bad. That's something he's got to improve on for his own health and for the offense. Neb, without some huge quarterback transfer as good as Gabriel and a D-line who can get 10-plus sacks, likely, rest in peace, Norvell. Yeah, I don't think it's going to turn around. They'll be very new next year. I expect 3 to 5 wins right now as a number, but we don't know anything about the portal. Right now, I would put it somewhere between 3 and 5. That obviously gets him fired. If Norvell can't recruit, it doesn't matter what coaches you bring in. Also a true statement. Philip Huddy IV, as a Florida fan, Luke has actually a good deep ball. Yeah, he does. He can throw the deep ball. That I agree with. Greg Woods, what's your thought of hiring Gus? I'll bring this up again. I know the guy because I covered UCF. Good dude, easygoing, really likes the ability to run the ball first as a play caller. Different nuances of the option game are involved, a little bit like Urban in some ways. Needs a quarterback that can break ankles, though, and Florida State doesn't have that guy. So I'm curious to see what will happen with them in regards to, shall we say, either hitting the portal or adapting the offense, because Luke can't do that. Now, he'll throw the ball. He'll definitely do that. But he likes to run a ton of misdirection, reverses, and screens. Those three things, and then inside zone RPO. It's one of those four things pretty much over and over and over again. And he'll mix in some trick plays. He's a big gadget guy. I'm curious to see how that'll go long term. But he's not going to have the same bag of goodies that he had at Auburn, like when he left Auburn. And he had some speed at UCF too. So we'll see. Barbara, I believe in the Seminoles. They need to believe in themselves. Thank you, sir, for saying that bad sportsmanship is bad. Enjoy the rest of your evening. God bless. God bless to you as well. Myron Smith, flag plant classless, but their action was a microcosm of season. Only a few Florida State players defended the field, while the majority sat back and watched. Different outcome everywhere else today. Kim, it simply is not apt to get worse. It is that bad now. Kim, Luke can run well. He can run pretty good, but he's not a lateral quickness guy. He's more straight ahead. Sports Icons TV, Norvell should enter the portal. Dun, 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 dun. Tyler Cole. I recall Florida State players stomping and scraping the UF logo after the win in the swamp last year. It's a rivalry. It happens. If they did, I don't remember, but that's pathetic if they did. You shouldn't do that on anybody else's field. End of story. I don't care what year it is. It's not a good idea. Let's see. This I disagree with from Michael Cangelosi. Can't be fixed. The program's been destroyed. Every program can be fixed. It's all about who the head coach is. Greg D54. I remember when Florida State cursed and stomped on our logo last year. Go Gators. I do not recall that, but if they did, that's stupid. Period. Let's see. Okay, got enough of the Gators here. Do we like Gus as offensive coordinator from Flacco? It depends. Again, I said it earlier. Do they let him really be a coordinator? Meaning Gus is a very specific type, but to do it, he doesn't have a quarterback that fits his style to a T in Tallahassee. He'd have to adjust. So that just depends if him and Norvell can come up with something. I really don't know the answer to that. Let's see. But Sean, I don't know how the coaches didn't see that McCoy moment coming. Let's see here. Gus will be better than what we had. Yeah, that's zero chance he's not. I mean, for the love of mankind. Gus can recruit and runs a pretty good offense. Kim, this team looks like they never played together. They'd need a ton more practice. No argument. Time for basketball. I see us making the turning. Go Noles. Kim, maybe a new OC will help Luke as he hangs onto the ball way too long. No argument there. I'm surprised he was as bad about it, especially even later in the game. He still hung onto the ball too long. Florida was getting pressure. You got to get it out, throw it away, take off, whatever. Gus runs a very slow, boring offense with some trick plays. I don't like the hire. That's from Chan. Daniel Mikel, Norvell is a sore loser. Can't help, blah, 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 whatever. See you, Gators. Who is your pick for DC? I don't have one. I don't know what that is right now. That's hard to say. Sam Gibson. We talk about Norvell getting fired in the foreseeable future. Who would be a good fit? It seems like there's more up-and-comers and tried and true head coaches out there than winners. right now is an awful time for the sure thing. There aren't any, to be honest. The hottest coach is the guy at Tulane, but he doesn't have any major college experience. I know that a lot of coaches don't want to coach anymore. They don't dislike NIL. They loathe its existence. They don't like the losing the locker room. Players got too much power. Good coaches are leaving in droves. College football's got a coaching problem. So your point is very true, and I don't know. I don't know if that's going to matter. It is what it is. Florida State's got to figure it out in the next year or so. Norvell, in my opinion, once again, will get fired next year. Prove me wrong. Let's see here. Let's see. Do a few more here. Chan. Now I'm interested in hearing the defense coordinator hire. Also, why were they saying we may have to wait due to possible hires being on playoff teams? Obviously not true. Obviously, some of it can be true. It just depends on who it is. If Gus is the OC, they weren't going to the playoff. If his hire for DC is a guy that doesn't want to say anything, then you have to wait. It's all dependent on who it is. And I have zero clue who that is. No idea. All we need now is Dan Mullen as our defense coordinator. That'd be hilarious. I don't think Dan's a defensive guy. Chan, are we going to keep Solomon Thomas? No idea. They don't have an O-line coach yet. I have no idea. Maybe that would work out. Maybe it would. Master of Dreams. FSU sucks. Yeah. Shocker. What an unbelievable post. That Trench Grinch, I'm driving the Gus bus, so either get on or get gone. That's funny. Summon Thomas to Florida. I don't know about that. I haven't heard anything. Neb, will ask Gus run the option if SU can win the ACC. Who knows? Thankfully, not in the Big or SEC. Do we split from the Atlantic Coast Conference? Well, if you want to pay about $250 million, something like that, you might. Don't think Florida State will keep Tokars. That's the Trench Grinch. He may not. Tonight was not a good night for the quarterback coach based on how Luke played. Kim, will Florida State target quarterback in portal next year? That is a great question. With Gus coming, it wouldn't shock me, but you've got a freshman quarterback. I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to talk about it, but I haven't had a chance with all the stuff that's going on to really look into it. We'll see. Ray Green. Miami, the terms program trajectory really hit different this evening. Well, its trajectory is down because you're not going to get a quarterback as good this next year in the portal, and you're going to lose a ton of seniors. Good luck. Braden, the ACC makes you all soft. I don't know about that. Let's see what else we got. All right. Chan. Bad look on Norvell crying to Billy, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. See you, buddy. All right. I'm going to make a few final statements here, then get out of Dodge. Number one, thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first to listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping to talk some Noles with me. Please hit that like, hit that notification bell, subscribe if you have not already, and share this podcast so I can get in front of more Florida State fans. You can find me on X at FBScout_Florida. Last thing on Gus, I'm curious and excited at the same time to see what he will bring to Florida State. I will go over a whole host of things tomorrow on Locked On Seminoles, some recruiting. Going to talk Gus, going to talk Croman Hawk, going to talk roster, going to talk portal. It'll be the most widespread podcast I've ever done on Locked On Seminoles. Probably have it up in the afternoon, or if I'm lucky, maybe late morning. But to do it right, I can't get it all done. I got to talk to people. I'm guessing it'll be a 5 o'clock show. We'll see. But make sure you check out the Sunday edition of Locked On Seminoles. It will be a lot of fun. Once again, thank you very much. I will see everybody again on Sunday. Take care. Have a good one.